Hey everybody, have you considered starting a podcast? We here at Screwball highly recommend Podbean for getting your podcast out to a larger audience. Podbean has given us the opportunity to easily bring you Screwball each and every week on all of your favorite podcast services. Use the link podbean.com/screwball to sign up and save up to 35% annually. You can also use the link podbean.com/pro/screwball to sign up for a business subscription. Happy podcasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screwball Baseball Podcast, your home for everything baseball. I'm your host Mike Lepre here with my co-host Frank White.
Hey, how's it going?
This is episode 118 of Screwball, and following the All-Star break, the All-Star week that we had talked about in the last two episodes, we finally do have a recap for you as opposed to just predictions, and obviously following a shortened week of baseball since games started back up on the Thursday. So not too much to talk about with too much gameplay because there was only about a series or, two series in some cases. So let's just start the first piece of news here, as we usually do with the news section. Like I said, the All-Star Week recap. So during the Home Run Derby that took place last Monday, Juan Soto won the Home Run Derby after beating Julio Rodriguez in the finals. Albert Pujols, just as a side note, made it to the mid-round, which I thought a lot of people found surprising. Frank pretty much predicted that Kyle Schwarber would put up a goose egg, and he didn't quite put up a goose egg, but he did not perform to the level that a lot of people did, especially me. So I wanted to throw that out there. The Pujols put on a show. As far as the All-Star game goes, on Tuesday, the game ended 3-2, which is a little bit lower scoring game than Frank and I thought. It ended 3-2 with the AL winning, I think, their ninth straight or something like that. Giancarlo Stanton won the All-Star Game MVP after he hit a big two-run home run to tie the game, and then a solo home run from Howard Buxton clinched the game. So it was a pretty good All-Star week. The Home Run Derby was exciting as it usually is. Had a pretty good field of players. Julio Rodriguez emerged as a really bigger contender than I even thought he could be. Juan Soto, of course, did his thing. Pete Alonso put up a show. Albert Pujols put up a show. Even Corey Seager, I believe, who had to go up against Julio Rodriguez in the first round or whatever, he put up a show, and he kind of got beat because Julio Rodriguez hit like 30-some home runs. So Home Run Derby was fun. All-Star Game was a little bit more engaging than I'm used to. I watched it more than I often do. So all in all, a good week, and it was good to see some teams get rest. There was some teams that really needed a day off or two. So overall, good week, I'd say.
Yeah. I thought the All-Star game was more entertaining. Just kept your attention a little bit more. Obviously, baseball, you can't really go out in baseball and not try. If you're a pitcher, I mean, if you throw 95, you throw 95. You can't really not throw 90. If it was 85, it's like, well, this guy's obviously not trying, right? There's no, like, NFL where we just don't tackle the Pro Bowl, right? You can't really do that in baseball.
Right.
Sure, you may not throw all your pitches, maybe throw a lot more fastballs. Yeah. But, and then hitting, you're not just going to go up there and just, wave around. You're going to try hitting.
Right.
So, it's hard to not contend in baseball. Home Run Derby was good. The broadcast has been hurting for 2 years. They don't show exactly where the ball lands. They got split screen. They still don't show where the ball lands.
Right.
They don't update the home run tracker sometimes. Sometimes you get his, ninth home run and it still says 7. They don't show the home run distance consistently or accurately. They'll show home run number 3 was 450 feet and he just hit home run number 6 or 7. It's like, well, I don't really remember home run number 3. We just seen 10 pitches. It's flying, This broadcast has been lacking. You really want to see the distance where it lands. That's the exciting part. Plus, how many they hit.
Right.
So they got to get that up to speed. They used to have the pin right when the ball landed. The pin would pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And after the round, they would kind of give you a little bit more accurate. They show some replays of them. So I feel like that the broadcast for Home Run Derby last year, they didn't show distance much at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like they got to get that better. That's that's like watching a baseball game and then not showing the field when the ball gets hit.
Yeah.
You're missing half of it.
Doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, so they got to fix that because that's really one of the biggest things Home Run Derby is watching the ball, watching where it goes, and seeing the distance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, that's all they care about. They don't care so much about how many home runs or who even wins it. They just want to see someone hit the snot out of the ball.
Right.
That's something they got to work on.
Agreed.
Otherwise, All-Star break was good. All-Star game was entertaining. Futures game was entertaining. Home Run Derby was always fun. So overall, it was a good weekend. LA got its time in the sun there. It's been a while. Piece of news I got, Hall of Fame induction yesterday. We seen, I believe, our 7 players: Jim Cott, Buck Fowler, Manny Minoso, Tony Olivo, Gil Hodges, O'Neill, and David Ortiz. So we seen the Hall of Fame induction yesterday. That was pretty cool. A lot of players, which is good. A lot of well-deserving players. But yeah, for the most part, it was just the All-Star. That's pretty much what we had.
Yeah,
News-wise.
yeah, there really wasn't much. The only other two pieces of news I have here, other than that, obviously Ortiz being the headliner of that All-Star game class or Hall of Fame class. I mean,
Yeah.
he was obviously the one that brought the attention. So, congrats to him and the rest of the Hall of Famers that finally got their time to shine. But the other two pieces of news I have here is Mets acquire Daniel Vogelback. Kind of kicks off the I would say like the trade deadline stuff. It's one of the bigger moves, at least noteworthy. The Mets acquired Vogelback from the Pirates in exchange for right-handed reliever Colin Holderman, and we'll most likely see DH playing time as he kind of did with the Pirates. So there was a funny video of him scoring from second to home.
Freight train.
Like, yeah, it's just a big dude. I don't know how much of a difference he'll make to the Mets, but he at least brings a different. I know they weren't happy with Dominic Smith, so I think he is supposed to actually see most playing time too, and is less of a platoon role. So, but like I said, kind of kicks off the trade deadline stuff, so at least worth mentioning. And then just the last piece of news here, I just thought worth bringing up. You probably saw it even on just your regular news, but so there was a mint condition Mickey Mantle card that is up for auction right now, and it's projected to break a record at the auction. So it's estimated it could exceed $10 million, and the auction ends next month on August 27th. The record right now is $6.6 million for a 1909 Honus Wagner card that was sold a year ago. And then, if you remember, just I think a little before that was the Mantle card that got $5.2 million. So right now, the card that is at auction right now is rated a 9.5, and it was bought in 1991 for $50,000. So 30 years ago, I'm sure $50,000 was still a pretty penny, 31 years ago. But to now make over $10 million potentially, or you're at least going to break the record because it's already at, I think, almost at $4 or $5 million at the auction. So you're at least breaking the record. You're making a few $1 million. So I'd say it's a pretty good chunk of change, pretty good investment you made.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So I thought that was worth mentioning because we do see, I believe we did bring up this Honus Wagner and Mickey Mantle card the year ago that it came up. So we're just seeing another, we're seeing kind of a boom in card exchanging, whether it be baseball cards, football cards, Pokemon cards, or, all this, there's these playing cards are really like kind of, I see, at least from my perspective, you're a little bit more in the market, but I think there's been a little bit of a boom in the last year or so, especially since COVID.
Yeah, the last couple of years, the market's definitely gone up, which is good. Got people back into it and getting it always goes through the up and downs with those markets. So, yeah, and the last thing here, is the topic of the day, which is going to be the topic, probably for the next couple of weeks, is pretty much the trade deadline and some rumors and just some players you could see on the move. I think this trade deadline and this offseason coming up are going to be some of the biggest we've ever seen, and just some league-altering deadline and offseason. Deadline, we're talking Soto could get moved. They kind of listed their price. We've seen the Angels list a price for Ohtani.
Yeah.
Those are two of the biggest names you're ever going to see. Obviously, you have your outside chance. Could Judge get moved in some sort of huge superstar swap? I mean, there was an outside chance of that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you got, like I said, Soto and Ohtani. Noah Syndergaard is still a big name. Joey Gallo, obviously, from the Yankees. Terrible at the Yankees, but, still a relatively big name. Carlos Rodon could get traded because he's on a long contract with the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox have a ton of players that get moved.
Yeah.
Sale get moved as injured right now and then come back for a team. Bogarts, J.D. Martinez. I don't think they'd move Devers, but they got some big pieces that can get moved.
Yeah. Because a lot of these guys are free agents with the Red Sox.
Yeah, the Red Sox, yeah. So there's a lot of things that can happen here at the deadline. A lot of young players can be moved, especially Soto and Ohtani. Could even Trout be around?
You never know.
To think of. The Cubs, Williams Contreras. Is Votto? Could he get moved? There's a lot of questions, but there's some real big names that we already know who could get traded. Soto, Ohtani, Rodon, the Red Sox. That's some of your biggest superstars.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I mentioned the offseason being, there's a chance that the offseason is another part of league-altering things. We have Arenado could opt out. You got Judge as a free agent, Verlander, I believe, is a free agent. Kershaw's a free agent again. So those things are, league-altering with these trade deadlines. yeah, that's just there's a lot going on. And these, just like I said, I wanted to mention Soto and Otani. I mean, those are you don't see those guys get traded. Guys, right? The last time we've seen anyone like that get traded, I mean, I don't know, A-Rod.
Right. Something like that, yeah.
At midseason and stuff like that, Arenado, yeah, we've seen. But these are like, don't get me wrong, Arenado's one of the best players we have in baseball. But this is a little bit different. These are generational players at their youngest ages.
Oh, yeah.
Soto, an incredible age, and Otani, just, once in a generation player we haven't seen in, I don't know, since just about Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
So, it's just the deadline, like I said, it could go nuts. It could just be quiet. None of the big guys get moved, but it also, some team swings in and you get Soto and you have 5-6 prospects on the move. Or Otani, you got a couple of major leaguers and prospects on the move. Swings a whole division, a whole team, a whole race for not just this year, next year's, and then the offseason, that changes the offseason as well. So we're at that point next week. We're at the deadline. So, I just wanted to bring up the fact that, these are some crazy Bogarts could get moved. These are some of the best players in baseball at their position. It's just, it's hard to see. It's hard to believe that someone would want to get rid of these guys, but then you realize what that could do for your team. You can bring in 6 prospects or 5 prospects for Juan Soto. That changes the Nationals quite a bit around. Plus, some of the guys they already have hanging around. Strasburg comes back and just not completely utter failure. You have, some other younger players, right? Maybe Carter Kieboom actually plays a game.
Kyber Ruiz and Josiah Gray.
Victor Robles in center field. Plus whatever prospects they already have. And then you add, the Yankees, Dominguez or something like that. That changes their whole franchise, that whole division, the whole league.
Yeah, changes the whole direction. You know?
So it's just, we're at a time right now where the league and for this year and the next coming years could be so changed by just this deadline that it's unbelievable. You see generational talent get moved or have the chance of getting moved. It's just, you just don't see it. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And there's obviously the big name of Soto. I do think he does get moved because there's a lot of teams that have the prospects to do it. And
Cardinals,
I think the Nationals,
top ones right now.
Yeah, Cardinals are definitely the ones that make a lot of sense to me.
And the Yankees.
And Yankees obviously have the prospect pool and the win now, mentality. It's like, does that really put us, as a team above? Same thing with the Cardinals. Now it's like all of a sudden we're the big dogs in the NL Central, not so much kind of getting fluttered in with the Brewers. It's like now we own this division kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
middle of the order of Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Juan Soto.
Yeah, I mean,
and then led off by Tommy Edman.
Yeah, who's highest WAR in the league, or just about.
Yeah.
So I think Juan Soto's the big shiny name, but there's also guys still out there that make big changes. You're more 2 or 3 starters that all of a sudden go to another team and are big, or just to say an ace gets traded somewhere, or a big time reliever. This is when bullpens kind of get shaped out.
Yeah. You got Frankie Montas, David Robertson, Scott Barlow.
Yep.
David Bednar. Brian Reynolds is a superstar.
Yeah.
Just kind of stuck out there. So those are the guys. Don't get me wrong. Those are superstars. They're some of them guys. Brian Reynolds is a borderline superstar. These are perennial all-star guys. Obviously, but then you got generational talent in Soto and Ohtani. I mean, these are just. This deadline always seems to be right that way. It could shape up to be one of the best deadlines of all time, right? And then sometimes they don't. We see Verlander move and Greinke move in the past, and Cole. So we've seen some, but this one obviously with Soto and Ohtani. I mean, these are just.
Yeah, I think Ohtani is more pie in the sky, but I mean, I wouldn't fault the Angels because imagine what you could get for him.
Yeah, and if you trade him, you trade Trout in the offseason.
Yeah, and then
I don't see how Trout could stay if you trade Ohtani.
And then you have the world, and you take the money off
Rendon,
the books,
who still has some value, even though he's been terrible. He's Syndergaard, you could trade. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, if the Angels really wanted to go that way, they could really get some talent. They could really look towards the future.
Really get rid of everybody.
Oh yeah,
Jared Ward, David Fletcher when he comes back.
So I think the trade deadline will be big. I think there will be a big splash with Juan Soto. I don't know exactly where he goes, but I think the Cardinals make a lot of sense. I think the Yankees can make sense.
Dodgers, Mariners, Padres.
Yeah, you can never count those big teams out. You really can't, especially the Dodgers. They'll do anything. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to with that. The trade deadline is always some of the best parts of the year because it really does shake up teams, and it really just shake up divisions, and all of a sudden you have a team that was kind of in the middle, like do we buy, do we sell, and they sell, and all of a sudden they're out of it, and then another team, like say the Guardians right now, or all of a sudden they're really in it, because I believe they're in second place. So Or all of a sudden, maybe the White Sox make a big splash and they're back up at the top of the division like they should
Where they
be.
get rid of guys.
Or all of a sudden they're like kind of they're spreading their talent thin a little bit and they're trying to figure it out for next year.
Blue Jays do that.
Blue Jays could do that.
Orioles could do it with Trey Mancini.
Well, at this point, you mentioned the Red Sox. I think that if the Red Sox have another bad series or two here and they get leapfrogged by the Orioles, and you got Xander Bogaerts opting out, JD Martinez is a free agent, you got decisions to sell. I think there's a lot of free agents for them this year.
Vasquez is a free agent for them.
Yeah,
and he's one of the better hitting catchers, at least this year he is.
Yeah, I would. If I'm the Red Sox, I'm thinking about moving him because this is probably the best you're going to see out of him. For the most part. They have a big decision to make there because they obviously don't want to be, the lowly team in the AL East when everyone else is kind of partying. The Rays, Blue Jays, and all of a sudden the Orioles are having a good time.
And then lose these guys in the offseason because you didn't want to hurt feelings of your fans. But that sets your franchise back even more.
Right. So they have to make big decisions. I think this upcoming series or two can make a big difference for them. Like I said, they can get leapfrogged by the Orioles.
They're done. Sale getting hurt there, and then
the struggling bullpen and inconsistent offense.
Valdi not coming back the same. I mean, it's just they're done.
Yeah, they've had a weird year. They had some ups and some downs, but I'd say more downs.
The back half of the lineup's not good at all.
No.
You have 3 or 4 guys that can hit. If one of the bottom guys hits a little bit, sure they get scored runs, but when you're giving up 28 runs.
Literally.
The last 3 games, I think it was 90. They gave them 93 runs in 3 games. I think they gave up like 115 or 120 in the last 5 games. You can't do that.
Yeah, no. The pitching's been bad.
You don't have a stadium that is good for pitching either. So they get bad pitching in a bad stadium.
It's like batting practice at that point. It especially was for the Blue Jays.
And then you face the AL East teams.
Yeah, not great.
Like, we're going to go face the Central. You go face the Twins and the White Sox lineup. Yeah, sure. We're going to face the West. You face the Astros. And whatever, the Angels might have a couple of good hitters. I mean, the Mariners.
Or the Mariners at this point,
thanks. We're just going to check out here.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll see with the trade deadline. I think next week we'll have a more comprehensive predictions, because we've already seen people move. The hot stove will heat up a little bit. Rumors will really swirl. There will be guys that are in, or teams that are in, teams that are out. There will be players that are made like officially on the market, blah, blah, blah. So I think next week we'll have a little bit more of a breakdown, and by the time it goes live, those players will probably have already moved. So we'll come back with more next week, but that's at least the preliminary look at kind of what's going on with the trade deadline. So again, one of my favorite parts of the year this whole time is seeing how teams can get better. So let's move on to the wrap-up, the who's doing the best right now, the last segment of the news. So who is doing the best right now? Well, so the Dodgers own the best record in the league, leapfrogging the Yankees, who have been there all year, just barely by winning percentage. So they own the best record in the league at 64-30, while the Mets own the second best record at 59-37, while the Braves are chasing them down. I believe the Braves only have like 11 losses in like 2 months or something like that.
They're just behind the Mets.
Yeah,
and they were 10.5 games behind them starting June.
Yeah, the Mets have not played bad baseball. The Braves have just played better baseball.
I think the Mets are 26th in scoring since the beginning of June.
Oof.
When they were like 5th in scoring.
Wow.
Before that, so that's been their problem.
Yeah, which I mean, I know they've had problems with some of their signings. Canna and Eduardo Escobar and Lindor hasn't. I think Pete Alonso's really been your guy in the middle of that lineup. So, but the Braves have played outstanding baseball. So it's kind of hard to compete when you have a team that just doesn't lose. It's kind of hard to stay ahead of them. But they do have the second best record in the league, so they're not being pushovers at all. So over in the AL, the Yankees still in the best record at 66-31, while the Astros are nipping at their heels. That's the second best record at 64-32. Yankees still in the best run differential at plus 200, while the Nationals own the worst at minus 162.
Yeah, that's just not good.
No, so that's where you're looking at with your best teams. Still kind of the same teams, but just a little different order.
Yeah. Some teams I got here on the hot list: the Blue Jays, obviously they just destroyed the Red Sox. The Rays, the White Sox back in the hunt over there. The Astros and the Dodgers. Some cold teams. Obviously the Red Sox, I think they're 1-9 over the last 10.
Yep.
Tigers, Angels terrible. Rangers have been cold. The Phillies have been cold of late, which you never know. Phillies lose a couple more games here that they start trading some pieces away.
Mm-hmm.
And the Nationals obviously been terrible. There's some hot and cold teams that I wanted to throw out there as well.
Yeah, kind of like we mentioned with the trade deadline stuff, we're kind of usual suspects of who we're talking about could be buying and selling. So no surprise there. Dodgers are in it, Mets are in it, Yankees are in it. Red Sox are really losing ground here. So again, we'll see where the trade deadline heads towards. So let's move on to who's hot and who's not, the hot and cold section of the show. As I usually do, I like to have the players of the week on my hot list just to at least give them mention. So I do have Aaron Judge on the list. Paul Goldschmidt was the NL Player of the Week. I don't have him because he's just always hot. That's just how he hits anymore. So I wasn't even when I saw him as a Player of the Week, I was like, oh yeah, he had a good week.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Oh, he got his 1,000th career RBI the other day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and did he hit a home run milestone too? Maybe that was
home runs in a game. That's for sure.
Maybe it was Mookie Betts. I think had 200 for his career, which is cool. But so just to mention Paul Goldschmidt, I don't have him on here, but he is worth mentioning. He won NL Player of the Week. So the number one, my number one player I have here is Aaron Judge, batted .474 over the last week with a 12-11 slugging and a 1776 OPS. Came out of a little bit of a slump he was having, a little bit of a home run drought. Number two, I have Stephen Kwan, batted .474 over the last week with a 684 slugging and 1184 OPS. He had a very good week. Dolis Garcia at number three, quietly having actually a really good year following his really good rookie season. Batted .471 with an 882 slugging and a 1382 OPS. Number four, Matt Chapman, finally got the hitting going after having a pretty overall disappointing year. Disappointing 2 years probably for Matt Chapman. Batted .462 over the last week with an 846 slugging and a 1409 OPS. And then number five, Lourdes Gurriel, batted .467 over the last week with a 533 slugging and a 1033 OPS. So two Blue Jays guys, no surprise there. Probably got all their hitting out in just against the Red Sox.
You go 4 for 5 for 6 against the Red Sox in one game. That usually sets you up pretty nice.
Yeah, so no surprise there.
Yeah, some guys I wanted to add on today. Freddie Freeman's been hot for more than just last week. He's been going nuts. And Ahmad Rosario's been having a good year, and he's been doing good over the last week or so. And Seth Brown, over the last 7 days, has been putting up some good stats. Some pitchers that have been doing good: Zach Gallen pitching well, Nestor Cortez. His last start pitched very well. Jose Quintana, 7 scoreless the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Morton, rounding in the form there. And Craig Kimbrell, been hot of late. That's been kind of one of the downfalls for the Dodgers. One of their only ones is their bullpen's been a little weak, and especially Kimbrell. You get Kimbrell pitching like how he could with the rest of that team, their guys. That could obviously be devastating for everybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some pitchers there who have been pitching well over the last 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, Kimbrell in particular, the Dodgers have a good bullpen, and you would have figured, okay, we replaced Kenley Jensen, we got Craig Kimbrell. It's like, well, that's fine. But he's had a little bit of a rough year, and like you said, it's kind of been the only, dark spot, I guess, for the Dodgers has been not having quite the consistent closer. But if you can get him on track, you have a lockdown closer. He's one of the best of the last decade or so, to be honest.
The best we've ever seen at this point.
Mm-hmm. You definitely want him right, especially for a playoff run. You don't want all of a sudden Kenley Jensen had that problem sometimes in the playoffs. You never really knew which Kenley Jensen you were getting. So we'll see what happens. As far as the cold players, the who's not section of the list, I have number one, Max Muncy, batted .071 over the last week with a 143 slugging and a 331 OPS. It's just his year. That's just average for the year at this point.
Yeah, he's been worse than Gallo this year.
Yeah, which is that's difficult. That's like you have impossible. To try. Yeah.
It's pretty impossible, yeah.
Number two, I have Brandon Belt, batted .077 over the last week with an .077 slugging and a 154 OPS. He's also had a pretty rough year, if I'm remembering. Yeah. Giants as a whole have kind of come back down to earth, which is not surprising.
More like how they're supposed to. When you have not great talent, you put up not great results. You can't just go, win 115 games when you got guys who are just really not that good.
Yeah, exactly. So they finally. We've been saying it for a year and a half. They finally came back down to earth. Number three, Nick Castellanos has had a rough go of it lately. He batted .077 over the last week with an .077 slugging and a 154 OPS.
Yeah, had a run-in with the media the other day. That's just Philly, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Philly, New York, L.A., you kind of run into those.
Yep. Number four, I have Didi Gregorius, batted .083 over the last week with an .083 slugging and 166 OPS. So two Phillies hitters, obviously not, Phillies not hitting or playing as they should, really, all year. And number five, I have Nelson Cruz. Had a 0 average, a 0 slugging, and a 154 OPS. He's 0 for his last 11. So I guess he must just came back from the weekend, from the All-Star break, and went 0 for. So not great. So those are my cold players of the week. Kind of not a lot of not surprising names on there, to be honest, especially Max Muncy.
Yeah, that's all year for him.
Yeah.
Some guys I got here: Wilmer Flores, Anthony Rizzo, Ramon Laureano, who could be on the move, and Riley Green's been slow of late. Some pitchers: Wainwright got beat up there. Pablo Lopez got hit around. Rodon had a kind of bad break outing. I think the outfield lost the ball in the sun and giving 3 runs because of that. But still, stat wise, kind of not great. Ohtani got beat up. As much as they talked about his run of 30 innings and only getting like 1 run, you didn't even know that he gave up a bunch of runs once you go checked it.
Yeah, that's true.
How that goes. And Shane Bieber gave some runs. So there's some real big names there on the cold pitching list. But that was mostly just because of their last start after the All-Star break, so that happens.
Yeah, it's weird with the Rodon thing, that the guy lost the ball in the lights. That's like the third or fourth, fifth time I've seen that this year, twice with the Red Sox. I don't know what's going on right now. It just see so many highlights of the guys. They go to catch it and they just immediately put their hands up like, I lost it. Usually you don't see that quite as often. Guys got the sunglasses on. They're fighting the sun. They at least know where it is. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I've seen it a million times already this year. I don't know why.
Especially of late at the Red Sox, and there's been a couple teams here just in the last week or so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think the Red Sox one was the Inside the Park Grand Slam. Yeah. I think that really that definitely catches someone's eye.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's tough. Tough to deal with as a pitcher, and you get earned runs because of that. Some injury news. We had some pretty big names here get hurt, which is a shame here. Rafael Devers placed in the IL. JD Martinez missed a couple of games. He were back, so that's another reason why the Red Sox could just start trading.
Yeah.
Michael King, the mystery of a fractured elbow. It wasn't the one where you're pitching and you see it and it gets pretty nasty. Look at Jared Parker. He used to have those.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of threw the ball, and he was just like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. And he has a fractured elbow. Might even need Tommy John, so that's a kill for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Bobby Witt, hamstring. They don't really know if he's getting on the IL. Pineda placed on the IL. Luis Robert placed on the IL. Trout placed on the IL. There's some huge names. Trout seems to be a fixture there. Jesse Winker has an ankle injury. Duvall's done for the year. Steven Matz, thanks for coming back, pitching a couple innings, getting hit around with the Red Sox for the Cardinals because he hurt his knee. He's back on the IL, so that really helped. Yeah. Tyler Stevenson, bad foul ball to his collarbone, broke that. He's done probably for the rest of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Tough break for him. Longoria placed on the IL. So some big names there, and some guys who could have got traded, or teams could be in the market for players because of these injuries. On the good side of things, Kikuchi had a rehab assignment. Springs for the Rays was activated. Montas came back through a couple innings the other day. Jazz Chisholm, bad news for him. They found out that he had a stress fracture in his back after being on the verge of coming back. He's pretty much done for the rest of the year. DeGrom should be pitching with the Mets here by the end of the month, beginning of August. So right at the deadline, they really expected him. Gene Segura progressing with his finger. Harper, they didn't take the screws out today as they kind of thought they could have, but he's not a setback. It was actually today would have been ahead of schedule. So next week they should take him out, so he'll be on schedule. So mid to late August for him.
Okay.
Yadier Molina is going to be joining the Cardinals back. He should be going on a rehab assignment the next couple of days. Expectation is he'll be back with the Cardinals the first couple of days of August.
Mm-hmm.
So that should help them a lot.
Yeah.
Jonathan India missed a couple of days here with some injuries, and Tatis cleared to swing a bat. You're going to start seeing him do some things. You probably won't see him activated with the Padres probably till mid-August, just because it's been out all year. It's going to take quite some time to get caught up.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but that's your injury news, good and bad. Some big names on the bad side, but some big names on the good side. So that's just how the injuries go. That's just how it shakes out sometimes. So it could be worse, but it could be a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some guys they're out for the season. Michael King's a big one. Adam Duvall's a big one. But also at this point in the year, you get, Jazz Chisholm's obviously another big one as far as stars of the game. So, you get a relatively good injury here, especially maybe, I know.
League.
Yeah, something like that. You're looking at, if you're on a playoff team, maybe you can come back for the playoffs, but it's looking like, you might be out for the year. So now's not the time to get an injury like that. Jazz Chisholm hurts, like I said, but they're not.
Luis Robert.
They're not really. Sure. Luis Robert definitely hurts because they're
whatever chance the Red Sox had left, that's all but out.
Yeah, so you have a lot of guys there that really you're hurting playoff pushes, and you're hurting maybe trade potentials. Maybe your decision to trade or not trade is affected now. So these injuries are definitely a little bit more under a microscope around this time. So it stinks for those guys, but hopefully we get some of them back and playing and good to go. Short IL stints are always good.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. So the last thing got here is the trivia question. And we've seen the All-Star game. We've seen Pujols at 41, 42 years old, whatever exactly he is. Well, he could be older for all we know, but
yeah,
we've seen that. So trivia question is Satchel Paige for the St. Louis Browns is the oldest player to play in an All-Star game. That's just how it is. But who is the oldest position player to play in an All-Star game. And in 1985, for the Reds, Pete Rose appeared in the game. He pinch hit for Fernando Valenzuela in the 1985 All-Star game in the Metrodome at Minneapolis. In the 8th inning, he grounded out. He is the oldest position player to play at 44 years old and 43 days old. So he is the oldest position player, Pete Rose. And the oldest player ever is Satchel Paige in the All-Star game.
Makes sense.
So that's a trivia question. So Pujols was right there. He could even be older than them, for him being possibly 45, 50 years old. But
True.
What we know his age, he's right there towards the top of that list, third or fourth oldest All-Star appearance.
Yeah.
But position player wise, Pete Rose in 1985 is the oldest position player to appear in an All-Star game at 44 years old and 43 days old.
Yeah, he played a while. Makes it a little bit easier to mask those hits that he got. When you play at a good level until you're 44, 45.
Yeah, 25 years.
Yeah, so I imagine you'd get 4,000 hits at that point if you're hanging around that long. So, again, is Pujols that old? Maybe.
We don't know. Yeah.
we don't know that, but he could be. But there's I figured it would have been someone towards their retirement. Obviously, would if you figure the oldest person to be 44. Satchel Paige being 49, like you said, is insane. He really was the ageless wonder out there pitching. So, yeah, it's a good one. It's a cool one. I wonder how many guys came close. There's guys like Jeter and Mo had their times in the sun. Ichiro had time in the sun. Miggy, by the time he retires, he'll be up there if he gets put in the All-Star game, kind of like he did this year. So, there's always guys that they hit 40, 41. Cal Ripken, that they get put in the All-Star game, and it's cool to give them a send-off. I do like that they did that this year with Pujols and Miggy, and they threw him in there as like a special celebration. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. I really do, because then
they gave so much to the game that it's time for the game to give them a little something.
Yeah, I don't think it, and I know people make the argument, you're taking away roster spots from younger guys that deserve it. It's like, well, when you have Albert Pujols, who isn't making an All-Star game, truthfully, by his,
and he's arguably one of the greatest right-handed hitter you've ever seen.
Yeah,
or ever.
Yeah,
I think you could throw him in there. For one extra All-Star game. It's not going to hurt nothing.
No, then that's, I think they should keep that if there are people retiring, and, they threw in Miggy, I think, to balance the rosters, if that I think makes sense. But, if they could do that in future years, Miggy again, or I can't really think of guys right now, but people that are coming up, I think it makes sense.
It also helps because then those years like Jeter's last year, was Jeter an All-Stars last year? Probably not, but he got voted there. Mm-hmm. So getting voted there took a spot from a younger guy.
Right.
When someone already knows that he's going to get put there because he's a legend of the game, you're not going to vote for him.
Right.
So that actually would help. But
yeah,
you
that's
got guys
true.
like Verlander coming to the end of his career, Kershaw coming to the end of his career. Those are guys where you're like, yeah, they probably deserve to be there at the end.
Yeah, you have Hall of Famers. It's like, let's give back to them at least just this one All-Star game.
Yeah, one or two at the end of their career, And then there's obviously so many young guys here that are still young, so we're not going to really have to get into it. But, guys maybe Trout towards the end and Yadier Molina here, right? He could have even been there.
Yeah.
There's some really guys like that who really deserve, to give or to get, essentially, at that point, a gift. But also to help these young guys at the All-Star game. It's cool to see these old Hall of Famers, talk at these All-Star games, and it teaches these young guys. It gives them, hey, remember when he was there and he told me this. It's just cool to see. Give them something. But they gave so much to the game. Pujols 22 years or so to the game, and again, you could make the case that he's the greatest right-handed hitter to ever play baseball.
Yep.
You can make that case. You could easily make the case that he's the greatest first baseman to ever play baseball. Mm-hmm. And his first 10 seasons are the greatest 10 seasons anyone ever played baseball.
Yeah, so
his averages of 330, 30-plus home runs and 100 RBIs. That's his average.
Yeah, so
he's unbelievable.
I don't think putting him in an All-Star game in his last season is that big of an ask.
Yeah, and Miggy won the Triple Crown.
Yeah,
we're all right.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Exactly.
It's not hurting nothing.
Right. So I think it was cool.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got. We got the deadline. We're going to go nuts. Next week's episode is going to be absolutely berserk. We're going to be doing it, recording it the day before the deadline. You know how that goes. The deadline ends at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. on August 2nd. Somehow deals are still coming at 6 p.m. You got, Soto could be moved. Ohtani could be moved. Anything. You don't even know. Maybe Greinke gets moved. Anything. There's so many guys that get moved. And it's craziness. And, teams make big mistakes like the Pirates did years past.
Yep.
You get teams who just make great even trades. You get teams that make trades that you don't think of anything of. Eddie Rosario, Jock Peterson, Horace Soler trades last year. They were literally World Series winning trades. Without them, they don't win. The Braves. So this is the time of the year where it's like, okay, this is just absolutely berserk. Your phone going off, Twitter's going off, everything's going nuts. Your team's whole different. You go watch a game. There's 5 different players. It's just berserk.
Yep.
That's where we're at. It's going to be fun. Next week's episode is going to be just chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, next week is definitely one to look forward to. We'll probably even have the TV on with like live updating trades, as we're trying to record this. So that'll be fun too. But other than that, that's all I got for this week. Next week will be a fun one. But for now, unless you have anything else, you can wrap this one up.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. You can catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts, as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. You can listen on our regularly updated YouTube channel, as well as our website, screwball.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at RealMikeLepre. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lepre.
And you can follow me on Instagram at ftubs10. And you can follow me on Twitter at ftubs10.
You can follow our official Screwball Twitter at ScrewballPod. You can follow our official Screwball Facebook at ScrewballPod. No E in Screw. And that's it from us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep, take care.